Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to Professor Chikayeva, the PhD Institute for the kind invitation to speak at this symposium. I apologize for not being able to attend in person as I'm splitting my time between Hong Kong, mainland Europe, and the UK. I am speaking with you this morning, sitting in Germany. So sadly, I have missed some of the interesting topics presented by the earlier speakers today due to the time zone differences. And I see from the attendee list that there are many distinguished professors and scholars in the audience. So there's an humble technologist, a former banker. I could hardly claim any expertise in the latest development of AI technology. Although I did do some work at developing previous generation of AI systems in the 1950s. Today, what I hope to share with you are some of my observations of impact of the application of technology on economies and on the wider society in general, and with some specific relevance to current AI technology. Having been a creator and a developer of technology, as well as someone who deployed technology at scale to deliver industrial solutions in the past. Over the years, I have seen immediate benefit but also less obvious long-term consequence of the use of some of the technologies, which do not always deliver positive outcome for all. Perhaps it is appropriate to point out that AI is not a new technology. I worked on it starting in the 1950s. To me, AI technology is just an evolution of automation with some real and significant attributes. A lot of the capabilities have already been embedded in systems that we are using today. We will all agree generative AI and more broadly narrow AI and perhaps AGI enabled products or services are here to stay. This type of technology will affect our daily lives to a much larger extent than earlier in situations we are where we are. To some of us, these are viewed as positive and helpful. To others, they deliver negative experience. I say we should not be carried away by either end of these sentiments. Nevertheless, we must inform our analysis and assessment of benefits and potential dangers by looking at the facts, think critically, and take decisive actions. The consequence of not taking action in harnessing and managing this technology could be catastrophic for humanity. I hope to stimulate constructive and rational conversation and discussion with the audience on the topic of application of AI both in education and the broader industrial commercial context. And this is likely to impact on the wider society. Make no mistakes, this is a multidisciplinary effort involving scientists, technologists, researchers, commercial enterprises, governments, and institutions. An educational institution be a key component to share knowledge and best practice. We must establish international convention and ethical frameworks for all AI development deployment. The good news is that we have faced similar challenges. We have nuclear proliferation treaty, chemical and biological weapons treaty, a treaty on ethics, etc., and etc. The bad news is the current fractures in international environment and geopolitical competition make global agreement of this type of treaties much more difficult to achieve. Since the introduction of ChatGPT 3.5 a few months ago, there is significant public debates about the pros and cons of generative AI and AI in general. The call for accelerated investment and the call for restraint are not in equal measure. Nevertheless, technology with such impact absolutely requires governmental level oversight backed up by international agreement. At the same time, we would not like to see over-regulation that snuff out innovation altogether. I shall not be using a slide today as I like to share with you my journey and the context that incorporated my views. I hope this would bring a stronger resonance with politics than reading out the almost commoditized talking points. So then into some background. Firstly, although I was born in Hong Kong, but I had lived overseas for half a century, so my experience would probably be very different from most of the audience here. I have worked on this in over 30 countries across 4 continents, or 5 continents if we count Australia as a continent as well. As you have already heard, I think I like to I believe there's a so let me briefly give you a quick rundown of my background and my experience to set some context of how this inform my approach to analyzing the impact of technology. And in this instance, more specifically, the potential impact of artificial intelligence technology on education and workplace and wider society. I believe that urgency for worldwide, for a wide-ranging discussion on development of the data platform. More importantly, the need to push for action by government in terms of policy guidelines for development and commercial deployment and regulation. It is also important for educators to think deeply and take appropriate action individually and preferably at institutional level to set appropriate common policy and go to cater for the changes likely to be especially by the use of generative AI. I am a computer scientist by training. I have been fascinated by all things tech on this for as long as I can remember. Originally, I wanted to be a neurologist and neurosurgeon because I was fascinated by how the brain works and the thinking and the learning mechanisms. However, I'm also interested in multiple engineering and natural sciences subjects. I cannot possibly do a degree course in each of these disciplines. This eventually led me to study computer science, as I surmised that through the application of computers will allow me to work across multiple industry and technology disciplines to solve interesting problems and have a big impact. As it turns out, I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to apply my learning to work on a wide range of industry sectors. And on graduation from university and indeed also in the summer internship during my university course, I was part of the original team at EMI which developed the CT scanners. And also I have worked on designing and developing advanced weapon system for the Royal Navy, also at EMI. So same tool set, but very different application and outcome. The computer and software are at the heart of these systems. One used for saving lives and the other terminating it. I also had the opportunity to work at BP research on high-performance computing platforms. We investigated different kinds of highly parallel computer architectures. SIMD, MIMD, for example. Indeed, the SIMD architecture is now at the heart of the NVIDIA GPU, which is so sought after for powering a lot of the AI application for training large data sets in AI applications. At BE, we also study fault-tolerant systems. Some of the principles and challenges in developing fault-tolerant systems are at the heart of some of the issues facing blockchain processing models today. Formal methods to prove correctness of algorithms and codes have been widely adopted in the development and testing of codes using mission-critical systems. Many examples of this is in the verification of the codes using the flight computers controlling fly-by-wire airline control systems. While at BP, I also learned the importance of scenario-based risk assessment in strategic planning. At this stage, I just like to stress that technology, especially a technology platform, in and of itself is neither good nor bad. It's just a tool or set of tools, an extension of human capability to solve problems. Depending on what we use it for, how we use these tools, and the motivation for those using these tools, it will be a set of very different outcomes. we must do our best to eliminate as much of the systemic risk as possible. The more impactful the product and service, the more effort we should spend on. The current AI models are some of the most complex systems that man has ever created, and we are just at the foothills. Hence, we must handle it with utmost care. We certainly do not like to see this product released in the market before thoroughly testing and validation, in particular those which could have direct impact on an individual's well-being. The second part of my career involved completely different industry altogether. I became a commercial banker from the second half of the 1990s. From a media and promoter technology platform, I became purely a user of computing. Bankers are essentially risk managers. Our job is to manage all sorts of risks, protecting people's money and wealth, to facilitate trade and preserve the financial system and economic stability, without which there could be no peace and prosperity around the world. So we are constantly looking out for hidden dangers, for example, in credit risk, market risk, operation risk, liquidity risk, systemic risk, and so on and so forth. And having worked, for example, globally, systemically important banks whose failure could trigger catastrophic financial and economic instability globally, we are particularly aware of our responsibilities. I also been involved in the Y2K review and remediation projects, a massive business process engineering, outsourcing of back office to different places for the international banks, restructuring of entire European banking network operations covering many countries. Delivery of these would not be possible without technology enablement. Some already have AI products and they embedded in the system many years ago. However, these significantly impact some people due to displacement. Therefore, we treat that with utmost care and solemnity too, as part of the implementation process. We'll come back to this later. As you can see, in the last 40-odd years, I have an opportunity to speak at many diverse types of projects which serve many different industry sector, geography, and some had some significant degree of impact to the workplace. Perhaps I am a case of jack of all trades and master of none, but it does afford me an advantage of seeing the big picture, a more holistic view of any situation and condition in me to look out for unintended consequence when introducing disruptive technology or processes. Since the introduction of GPT-3, there are so much being written about topics of generative AI and by association any form of AI backlinks in the news media. As all being here knows, the application of artificial intelligence algorithm is not new. Some example of these use are already in credit scoring, fraud detection, CV screening, digital marketing. And during the pandemic times, videography screening, just to name a few. In and by itself, there's nothing wrong with using these tools to automate some of the mundane tasks and drive efficiency. It becomes problematic when some of these tools can make decisions without without human oversight, and yet the decision is final and without recourse. A couple of examples are credit scoring system and CV screening or equivalent. Often there's no appeal mechanism or human intervention to review decisions based on specific circumstances. Yet the outcome of this simple AI-driven system already has real-life impact on someone's credit scores or employment prospect. On the positive side, the use of AI algorithm, for example, can speed up the screening of CT, MRI scans or help it identify features that can assist doctors to make faster and more accurate diagnostic. Other examples including assistance in improving the operational efficiency, reduce costs, improve project, improve job quality and satisfaction, improving design of critical infrastructure and control of critical infrastructure. This goes on and on. Some of these kind of AI-enabled systems have been in use for many years already. Now let's look at the three classification of artificial intelligence. Artificial narrow intelligence, or ANI. This type of artificial intelligence represents all the existing AI systems used, including even the most sophisticated and capable AI that has ever been created today. ANI refers to systems that can only perform a specific task autonomously using human-like capabilities. These machines can only do what they are programmed to do and thus have a very limited or narrow range of competency. So this system covers all those reactive and limited memory AI systems that have been developed today, including the most sophisticated ones that uses machine learning and deep learning to teach itself fall under this category. Artificial general intelligence. AGI is the ability of an AI agent to learn, perceive, understand, and function completely like a human being. This system will be able to independently build multiple competency and form connection and generalization across domains, massively cutting down on time needed for training. This will make AI machine as capable as humans by replicating our multifunctional abilities. With the current generative AI engines, many of the leading scientists who created this system are concerned about our own ability to control these creations, especially they do not yet fully understand how the machines arrive at the output. Artificial super intelligence. This is probably the ultimate goal of AI research. That AGI in some tasks will become far more capable than normal human. ASI, in addition to replicating the all-round intelligent human beings, will exceedingly better at everything that we do because of overwhelmingly greater memory and processing power and efficiencies. But this type of AI machines is what the doomsayer of the technology are wary of. The ability to create and develop technology tools is a testament to human intelligence. Wise application of these technologies bring great advances to human well-being. History has also shown that unadulterated and uncontrolled use of these same tools will inevitably bring about unintended and undesirable consequences. The negative effect of these consequences often takes a long time to emerge and usually costly to remediate. Who would have imagined the Industrial Revolution over 150 years ago, especially in the climate change crisis we are facing today? Occasionally, some technologies, if they are not properly managed and controlled, have the potential to threaten the existence of human life, nuclear power, or weapons, genetic engineering, biotechnology, nanotechnology, and now we are at the threshold of developing AGI. Developers of these technologies never set out to create some tools to harm human beings, but they often morph into something that could have serious negative impact to all of our lives and our descendants' life over time is not properly managed. For the earlier technology, the global communities managed to implement appropriate international treaties on religions and guidelines to channel and mitigate their use for the benefit of society. Although there are significant legislative activities in the UK, the EU, US, and China, there is not yet international agreement. Consensus agrees consensus of how to manage the emerging of AGI. There is an urgent need for a global framework under the banner of UN. current situation is fragmented, and the current geopolitical environment has potential to provoke tension rather than to preserve humanity. As a technologist, it is necessary for me to have a bias towards accelerating the development and launching of ever more capable AI systems as soon as possible. However, as a system engineer and former banker, I must assess the inherent and explicit risk associated with rolling out of a large-scale platform, which, with caution, technology-based or otherwise. Having participated in creation, development, and deployment of large-scale technology platforms across multiple regions, I have seen the values they bring, but also some of the unintended consequences arising from these deployments. However, as we roll out this platform commercially, we must consider the ESG aspect, and the impact on all stakeholders must be taken account too. In the current development of AI, it's fundamentally wrong that consequential decisions potentially affecting every person on this planet could be made by a small group of private companies without collective or governmental oversight. Human is not the only intelligent species on the planet. Dolphins, whales, primates, and even some pets have some degrees of intelligence. So what distinguishes human intelligence from the rest of the species in the animal kingdom? Human beings have developed languages which enable us to share knowledge and information more effectively. Languages allow us to say and communicate in abstract terms. With effective communication, it enables human beings to share ideas and efforts to cooperate and form society. Human beings are also good at making tools, although we are not the only species who can do so. Because the development of languages enables us to create more complex tools and technology, which in turn enables us to dominate other species, to change and control our external environment. Let's look at some classes of problems that AI can assist in solving or improving. Problem involving a large amount of data that is difficult or inefficient for humans to process manually. For example, some types of data analytics, problem requiring pattern recognition, patterns correlation, or identifying abnormalities in data that are not obvious or intuitive. Problem involving forecasting, recommendation, or decision based on data and desirable outcome. And also the problem benefit from human-like abilities such as natural language understanding. Some examples of such capabilities are using detecting fraud, debt spends, cyber security, optimizing supply chain logistics system, improving disease, diagnostic, translating language, summarizing text, and so on. Rolling out of AI-enabled platforms will have major impact on the workplace and employment too. According to a recent survey, the type of jobs which are already seeing the impact of the introduction of AI, it's the major, usually covers the digital-based jobs or semi-digital jobs. Think about programs, designers, creatives. The first new wave of these tools is already arriving. These are traditionally middle-class jobs, some created in the last wave of digitalization and automation. The following is also a few, some actual examples to teachers, tech jobs, programmers. Machine can do some of these now, and there are systems to present a complete video sequence, and it goes on and on. Professional jobs, I'm not saying to accountants, lawyers, management consultants, they could replace some of the junior roles, certainly people with no experience. And media jobs, advertising, graphic design, and financial services, we already replace a lot, we have already displaced a lot of these roles. Or AI has the potential to render many jobs obsolete. However, for every crisis, there are always opportunities. And with it, for example, we could create prompt engineers, ethics experts to deal with AI application, align ethical and legal standards and prevent biases. AI AI security specialists, AI educational professional. So you will ask, what is the problem then? For every class of jobs, there display seems to be a matching version of AI generated. The issue is speed and the scale of the job displacement. A McKinsey report estimates that up to 30% of existing white-collar jobs could be displaced in U.S. within the next 2 to 3 years. If current generation of AIs are allowed to take hold, then there could be a massive displacement of jobs compression into a very short period of time. This is going to cause a significant impact. So let us look at some of the generic risk, which if not managed properly, is going to have a serious consequence too. Could potentially lead to dystopia world. A lack of accountability. There's no transparency in some of the ways that decisions are made, but these decisions have impacts on human activities and individuals' lives. Current systems have no recourse. Some of the decision made have no recourse, and much had no such regulation conferring some of the rights of appeal either. A bias and discrimination. AI system can inherit biases from data they are trained on. So bias algorithm can shape public opinion from output of generated AI engines. Unemployment and job displacement I have already mentioned. But the speed of displacement is a significant risk if you cannot replace the jobs quickly enough. So that it could also create social and economic inequality. A large portion of the workforce become unemployed. Legislation and regulation need to be in place to protect these population. We would not like to see elite technocrats replacing workers with robots, and certainly the concentrate while society suffers. This is a form of feudalism, according to technofeudalism. So basic income is not an answer either. Either hands make like the devil's world. Privacy issue is another one. Security risk. AI and system could be hijacked or attacked by malicious actors who could exploit vulnerabilities. Misinformation and disinformation risk. This is possibly the biggest immediate risk with arrival of generative AI. Misinformation speak the erosion of trust, which, if not is allowed to permeate and eventually will eventually lead to destabilization of society. And there are also a lot of unintended consequences. So because of the power of AI, we need to look at how we control and manage it. And I just also like to say that I think the education establishment has a very important role to play and to prepare the workforce for rapid changes ushered in by AIs. In investing in education, reskilling and upskilling a program to smooth the transition to evolving job market and assist it. Acquisition of new skills. Education system institutions have a particular crucial role to play in preparing young people for the brave new world. The world of work in the next 50 years is going to be very different from what it was 50 years ago. How should educators prepare students for agility to adapt and compete in a fast-changing environment? Teach critical thinking skills, foster inquiring mind, In fact, all aspects of education are likely to be impacted by the use of AI-enabled products or services. AI is either the cause of the volatility, or AI-enabled platform can deliver the solution to ease the transition process. I'm encouraged to learn that Professor Chipieva and her colleagues are already actively incorporating some of these ideas in their lectures. I'm also heartened to read in news a couple of days ago that the Hong Kong government also mandated including of AI curriculum in the junior high school. So remember, there is a difference between intelligence, artificial or otherwise, and wisdom. Only human beings can accumulate and apply wisdom to change our lives and the world we did it. So final word of encouragement, especially for the younger audience, to accumulate and use wisdom to continue to steer humanity to a better future. The genius is already out of the bottle. There are still means to control it if we make appropriate efforts now. We must not open the Pandora box and let in a dystopian world. Thank you very much.
What an inspiring keynote for Mr. Lam. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and vision with us today. Let us see if the audience members would like to ask questions or share their feelings and beliefs at this stage. Please raise your hand and we'll pass you your mic. If you're joining us online, you're welcome to raise your hand and turn on your mic. You can also add your questions in the chat or Q&A. If you're unable to access these features, please scan the QR code on the screen and add your questions on Padlet. Any questions?
This can do the chain.
Thank you, Mr. Lam, for your insightful sharing. And I am Albert Jack of DI. I would like to ask the question. Apparently, AI is very helpful to everybody, but in terms of students learning, particularly those young and junior students, if AI can do the essay for them, in which case, do you think that there should be some kind of regulation in that aspect, particularly the work they should do is taken over by AI? Thanks, Mr. Lam.
Yes, I think this is one of my major concerns. I think that's why we need to think very carefully how to use this technology. My concern is if we have too much dependency on the technology, what is human being is mostly between those years, the gray matter here. If we outsource some of the learning and thinking process, then we are nothing. We are just a biological entity, right? And critical thinking is very, very important. I think for the younger children, the tool can use to help them to learn, but it should not replace their learning. So I think that needs to be governed. I think that's very important how we apply those. And certainly we should control the use of the tool. I think one of the regulations is what comes if you use a tool, then you need to say so. And that's also why we need other research. I think too much resources been put into research and developing the capability, but not looking at how we control and manage this. So I think we need to control this fairly stringently. I think we need to build the basic blocks. Basic knowledge need to be taught and exercised. I mean, you're already seeing some of the problems these days. I live in Europe, and with the calculators and if you go in the supermarket, very often we get frustrated that the checkout staff, they can't do simple arithmetic because they just use calculators, right? Even if the checkout counter already given them how much to change, and they still sometimes I see them counting fingers to give you the change, right? If you don't use it, you'll lose it, just like a muscle. If you don't use your head and we use a brain, then the ability to think would atrophy. So I think absolutely there need to be regulation into how you use it, in what stage you use it, and for some of the situation, if technology, if AI is using, as for example, answering questions, yes, fine, but then you need to say that it is using that to generate it, and also I think there's still problem with verifying the facts, and that's why I allude to the misinformation and disinformation at the moment. Even fact-checking is already very, very important and difficult with the current, like with social media and all the news being sort of come out. Imagine if a machine could generate in that form and with proper arguments, and it's very, very difficult to deal with. So this is a major, I see, is one of the biggest risks of using generative AI. But I'm also positive. I think if we work on it, there could be, and we would need to use the technology itself to actually help us solve this up, because human brains can't process that volume of the information in this short period and sufficient to be able to deal with a machine-generated environment.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lam. We do receive a question from the online audience. How should governments police AI? It seems like they are acting so slow.
Yes, this is a risk. As I say, I think, for example, if you use in the development, it's always like a license, right? If you incorporate some of these products, especially the current or the latent form of these, first we need to ensure the fidelity of the information and correctness of the information, right? So this needs extensive testing and some kind of ISOs. And also, that is also important why human beings need to be a part of the decision loop as well, right? So then you can assign liabilities or criminal, legal liabilities for things that goes wrong, right? And that would then put some type of, control on the people who develop these things, right? Because at the end, the technology itself is a tool. It's like fire, like a knife, or like everything else. It's the person or the people, the organization who uses it and the motivation of creating. So it is the way for government to govern this is to govern the people, not the technology itself, right? So if you develop some technology which could prove to create harm, then you need to tie the liability back to the people who develop and created it or roll out the products. Like if you at the safety of a car and so on, the safety of plane. That's why I use the example of the phone methods where they used to prove the algorithm using the flight computers, because they did a lot of work to make sure that these codes are correct, because a mistake in there or error in there could be catastrophic.
Okay, thank you. And thank you once again, Mr. Lam and all the audience members.